the outset, let me wish you all a very happy Kargil Vijay Divas. 26 July is a red letter day in the Indian military history. On this very day, 21 years back, the brave Indian Armed Forces defeated the Pakistani forces who infiltrated into the Indian territory after crossing the LOC in the Kargil sector. Today, let me pay homage to all the brave soldiers who sacrificed their life for the motherland. Also, let me pray to Almighty to give enough strength to the surviving kids and kins of all those soldiers to bear the great loss. Today the nation across and the Indian diaspora across the world would be celebrating Kargil Vijay Divas. Those of you who are less than 21 years were not born when the operation was going on from 3rd May to 26 July 1999. Although a lot of literature are available in terms of books or also in the internet, however, a narration from a veteran who had been a principal staff officer in a formation headquarters in Jammu and Kashmir would be more comprehensible. Before I get into the Kargil conflict, let me orient you where exactly Kargil is located on map as well as on ground. So I would request all of you to follow me. Presume that you are in the state of Punjab and the border town between Punjab and Jammu Kashmir is Pathankot, and as you cross the interstate boundary check post at Pathankot, you shall be getting into the Katwa district of Jammu Kashmir. There is a national highway 1 Alpha which takes you from Pathankot right to Leh Ladakh. So after Katwa district, as you traverse on the NH1 Alpha, about 100 kilometers ahead you reach Jammu. From Jammu you proceed ahead, you come to Udhampur. After Udhampur, you come to Doda district, and thereafter you reach Srinagar. From Srinagar, the NH1 Alpha, it takes a northeastern direction, and if you traverse about 204 kilometers, you are into Kargil district. After the Kargil district, as you proceed ahead, you will come across Leh, Ladakh, and if you take a northwestern direction, you reach Siachen Glacier. So, Kargil is exactly 204 kilometers from Srinagar and about 468 kilometers from Jammu. The main artery is NH1 Alpha. Earlier it was known as National Highway 1 Delta. The total stretch of Kargil district is 160 kilometers and it lies on the bank of Indus River, the famous Indus civilization you all studied. The Indus River was earlier known as Suru River. Kargil has got a height of, is at a height of 7,080 feet from the mean sea level. And in winter, the temperature drops down to minus 20 degrees Celsius. As per the 2011 census, the population was about 16,300 plus, and it has a temperate climate. Now coming to the historical background, Kargil means is a central place amongst various forts where people can stay. Before 1947, the Ladakh district had 3 tehsils. They were Kargil, Leh and Skardu. But after 1947, in October 1947 to January 1949, Pakistan launched an offensive into the Kashmir sector, basically known as the First Kashmir War. And when the war was stopped, a ceasefire line was established, set up, and because of which this Skardu Tehsil has become part of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and its name was changed to Gilgit Baltistan. So in 1949, there was a road which was connecting Kargil and Skardu, having a distance of 173 kilometers. It was an all-weather road, but after the ceasefire line was set up, this road was permanently closed. Now coming to the topography of Kargil, for the ease of understanding of the conflict from the military point of view, the Kargil district can be subdivided into 5 subsectors. Starting from the south towards the north, we initially come across Moshko Valley. Then as you go further, you come across the Dras subsector. Go further ahead, there is the Kakshar subsector, then the Batalik subsector, then finally the northernmost region is the Turtuk subsector. Now opposite to this Kargil district, facing the Pakistan, is the ridge line on which the LOC runs. Again, the stretch is about 160 kilometers. This ridge line is having a height varying from 16,000 to 18,000 feet. And in winter, the temperature drops down to minus 40 to minus 50 degrees Celsius. The importance of this ridge line is, from this ridge line you have a very clear observation of the entire Kargil sector. There are various heights on this ridge line. They are 4251, it's all in terms of meters. 4251, 4590, 4875, 5070, 5140, 5240, 5310 and 5353. 5353, which amounts to 21,000 feet high, is the highest point in the ridge line. And from the 5353 point ridge line, you get a very good view of the Kargil sector and the national highway, about 20 to 30 kilometers. So it's very, very dominating. And Pakistanis, if they occupy this ridge line, they can dominate the entire Kargil sector in terms of fire and in terms of observation. Now, before I come to the conflict, it's very important to understand what has been the relation between India and Pakistan since independence. 15th of August we got the independence, and immediately, as I said earlier, from October, the Pakistan tribal militia and the irregular forces, they infiltrated into the Kashmir and they started plundering, looting, all inhuman activities on the inhabitants. And then the Maharaja of the princely state of Jammu Kashmir was Maharaja Hari Singh, and the percentage of population in the princely state, about 77 to 90% was Muslim population. So when the tribal forces, they started looting and plundering Kashmir, basically Poonch sector, Baramulla sector and Srinagar sector. Though initially the Maharaja did not want to join Pakistan or India, but the situation forced him to ask for support from India. So he approached Indian government and requested if army could be sent to save Jammu and Kashmir from the Pakistani attack. The Home Minister then was Sir Vallabhbhai Patel, and he agreed to provide army support subject to signing of the instrument of accession, which the Maharaja did, and immediately Indian army was flown into Kashmir and all the militia and the irregular forces were evicted. When the Pakistanis were evicted, whichever post line they vacated, that lane is known as the ceasefire line. A ceasefire line was set up, and this ceasefire line continued till 1971. Then comes in 1965 war with Pakistan. So keeping quiet for almost 16 years after the first Kashmir war, 1965, Pakistan again tried another stunt. They sent again the forces infiltrated into the Jammu Kashmir to capture Kashmir and to annex with Pakistan. The code name was Operation Gibraltar. Again, India taken on with the Pakistani force on two fronts, Jammu Kashmir and Western Front, and we gave them a bloody nose. After that, in 1971, the Pakistan then comprised of two segments. One is the West Pakistan and the East Pakistan. There were a lot of problems, the poor administration of the East Pakistan, because of which there was the entire public of East Pakistan was against the governance. And when Pakistan army started doing access onto the civilians, a lot of refugees started coming to India, which was unbearable at a point of time. Then the Indian Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi and the Chief of the Army Staff, subsequently later on Field Marshal Manekshaw, they decided to liberate East Pakistan, and it was the shortest war in their history. Continued for only 13 days from 3rd of December 1971 to 16 December, and East Pakistan was liberated and a new nation was formed known as the Bangladesh. And believe you me, there was 93,000 prisoners of war captured by the Indian Army. It was the biggest disgrace to the Pakistan, even after, though they lost East Pakistan. So immediately after the liberation of Bangladesh, the Simla Agreement was signed between Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, and our Prime Minister, late Srimati Indira Gandhi, at Simla. The salient points of this Simla Agreement is firstly, no more conflict or confrontation between the two countries. Secondly, to resolve all the issues through bilateral negotiation. Thirdly, to convert the ceasefire line into a line of control. And fourthly, to arrange a UN observation team to oversee the situation in Jammu Kashmir. After the Simla Agreement was signed, in 1974, India conducted a nuclear test in Pokhran Range, Rajasthan. This irritated Pakistan. Thereafter, in 1984, we conducted Operation Magdur. What had happened was, 1980 onwards, Pakistanis were sending mountaineering expedition team to Siachen Glacier. Siachen Glacier is the highest battlefield in the world, which has got a height of 21,000 feet. And it's basically an extension of the Karakoram Eastern Range and having a length of 76 kilometers. The total area is 10,000 square miles. And Pakistan has been sending mountaineering expeditions to various peaks. And they were also sending a liaison officer along with the expedition team. And last, they sent a Japanese expedition team to climb the highest mountain peak. So if India has been watching these events and realized that if we continue to allow Pakistan to do this, then there could be a chance of connecting a trade route between Northeast China and Southwest Pakistan. So India wanted to stop it, and India wanted to capture the entire Siachen Glacier. And in 1984, India launched an attack on Pakistan forces deployed in the Siachen Glacier. We rather preempted Pakistan. They were also planning to launch an attack, an operation named Abilir, whereas India preempted them a day prior, and we captured all the posts, and Siachen Glacier became part of us. After that, in 1986, we conducted the Operation Brass Tacks. Operation Brass Tacks was the largest land exercise after the NATO and the Second World War. General Sundarji was the Chief of the Army Staff, and it was basically to simulate the operational potential of the armed forces, and also to conduct amphibious assault by the Indian Navy. And the prime aim was to determine the tactical nuclear strategy. About 6 to 8 lakhs troops were mobilized, the largest mobilization in the Rajasthan sector, about 100 kilometers from the international border. Then in 1998, the Pakistan conducted a nuclear test. Also, India conducted a second nuclear test. So it again irritated Pakistan, because of our nuclear capabilities. And simultaneously, Pakistan was also sending militia in the disguise of Pakistani insurgents and trying to create instability in Jammu Kashmir. Now the then Prime Minister, late Sri A.B. Vajpayee, he wanted to go to Pakistan, a diplomacy known as the Lahore bus trip diplomacy. On the 20th February 1999, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he went to Lahore, discussed with then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Sri Nawaz Sharif, about a peaceful solution and an amicable interaction on the Kashmir issue. He also proposed that we should have a Lahore to Delhi bus service, exchange of prisoners. That was a good initiative, and a declaration was signed at Lahore. In 1998-99, General Parvez Musharraf was the Chief of the Army Staff, and that was the time Pakistan, it is told, without the consent of the Prime Minister, Musharraf started infiltrating the elite special service groups and 6 to 8 battalions of Northern Light Infantry into Kargil sector. That was in the winter of 98 and the beginning of 99, when the Prime Minister of both countries were discussing about the Lahore bus trip. Now, what is the planning of Kargil war from the Pakistani side? This Kargil infiltration and attack plan was prepared long time back, during the time of Ziaul Haq and Benazir Bhutto. However, these prime ministers or the presidents, they did not execute it fearing that it may escalate into a full-fledged war. But Musharraf took a chance and he infiltrated this force, crossing the LOC on the Kargil ridgeline and getting into the Indian side about 4 to 10 kilometers, and they occupied a total of 130 to 200 square kilometer area. There was a convention or an understanding between both the troops, that is India and Pakistan, that because of the inclement weather and the inhospitable living conditions during the winter, the armies, both the armies on this post will vacate, and once the summer sets in, they will reoccupy. And accordingly, Indian army vacated, but Pakistan did not obey this convention or this understanding, and they infiltrated forces, and they occupied almost all the Indian posts, inverse Indian territory, about 132 vantage points on the ridgeline. So this operation is known as Operation Badar. Now, why Kargil was selected? Why Pakistan has selected Kargil? First of all, Kargil, it offers, the terrain is very, very conducive for a preemptive capture, because the major post of Indian army were vacated during the winter, and they could easily move in and occupy posts. Secondly, this ridgeline, which I told you earlier, that it is at a height of 16,000 to 18,000, and if you occupy all these vantage points, you get a very clear view of the Kargil district, Kargil sector. Like I said, at 5353, it gives you 30 to 40 kilometer length. So it is like a big fortress concept, like the Shivaji Maharaj during his reign time. He used to build fort on the heights so that they can annihilate or cause attrition to the attacking forces. And these ridgeline, because of its heights and good observation, they could dominate in terms of fire and observation. The artillery observers could direct fire, interdicting the National Highway 1 Alpha and all the army camps. And thirdly, because of this height, any attacker, his combat efficiency or the physical efficiency goes down, because one has to, with the fatigue and the arms and ammunition, everything, the efficiency goes down, and it would be very, very strenuous. And also the attacker to defender ratio needs to be very high. Like in the normal peacetime, the average attacker needs the 1:3 ratio, that if there is a platoon is taken a defense, and if you want to dislodge it, minimum recommended force level is 3 platoons for the attacker. But in a mountainous terrain, because of the tremendous height and for inclement weather, that is minus 50 degrees Celsius, the ratio recommended for an attacker is 1:9. So to dislodge or to destroy or to attack on a platoon strength taken defense, minimum force level required for the attacker is 9 platoons, that is 3 companies. So because of these advantages, Musharraf selected Kargil as the best place to occupy. What was the aim of Kargil war? The aim of Kargil war, firstly, to sever or to cut off the link between Kashmir and Ladakh. So if you cut off this major artery, which is the lifeline, that is NH1 Alpha, then all the forces, Indian Army deployed ahead of Kargil at Leh, Ladakh and Siachen places, they will be isolated, and you won't be able to maintain the troops, and they have to fall back. So they can, this Siachen glacier and the Leh Ladakh can be free of problems. Secondly, if he succeeds in his mission, they can negotiate the Kashmir dispute. Because obviously, if that happens, the first option happens, then India has to get into a discussion or a negotiation with Pakistan. Thirdly, Pakistan wanted to internationalize the issue for a faster solution. And lastly, to boost the morale of Pakistani troops. That's why they've taken this proactive action. See, like I said earlier, in the first Kashmir war, Pakistan was badly defeated. In 1965, we defeated. In 1971, they lost East Pakistan and we got 93,000 prisoners of war. In 1984, their Siachen glacier became out. So every time they were defeated, वो पिटते गया. तो उन्होंने सोचा एक बार कारगिल में सरप्राइज दे करके इन्फिल्ट्रेट करके we will cut off the national highway and we will get Kashmir done. But unfortunately or fortunately, उसमें भी वो पिट गया. So Pakistan's infiltration and occupation of all these 132 vantage points, the operation is codenamed Operation Badr. And learning about this Pakistan infiltration and occupation, India got mobilized. India mobilized about 2 lakh forces into the Kargil sector. Apart from that, Indian artillery was also mobilized. Around 300 artillery pieces were moved in, including mortars, field guns, multi-barrel rocket launchers, we call them MBRs, and Bofors. They all pulverized the Pakistani post and was very, very successful. In fact, the artillery pieces, they fired about 250,000 shells and mortars. So apart from the artillery, the Indian Air Force, under the code name Operation Safed Sagar, they also joined the offensive. MiG-21 strike aircraft, MiG-27 aircraft, Mirage 2000 and Mi-17 helicopters participated in the offensive. The Indian Navy also participated under the code name Operation Talwar. The Eastern Naval Fleet and the Western Naval Fleet, they joined together and they started dominating the North Arabian Sea, ensuring that all the trade routes of Pakistan are cut off, and also they blocked all the ports, mainly the Karachi port. Now, I explained you why Kargil was selected, what was the aim, and what was their strength and occupation, and how the Indian force combined in terms of infantry, artillery, air force, and Indian Navy, they joined the main offensive. Now, let me explain how the war progressed. On 3rd May 1999, Indian Army came to know the Pakistan intrusion or infiltration through shepherds. In Jammu Kashmir, we call them Bakrwals. They are like nomads. They keep moving from place to place for grazing the sheep. And when they moved in this area, the head of the Kargil district, they observed Pakistan troops, found the cigarette packets, the food packets, the remainings, all those things. They came and informed the Indian Army. Also, families of veterans, and they also detected the Pakistani troops' presence. So they also informed the Indian Army that Pakistan Army is in. Initially, Indian Army thought they must be the Kashmiri insurgents. But to ascertain the veracity, Indian Army sent a patrolling team under Captain Saurabh Kalia and 5 soldiers. At Bajrang Post, this patrol team, they confronted the Pakistani troops and they got into a firefighting. A stage came when this patrol team, they exhausted all their ammunition, and all of them were captured by the Pakistani troops, and they were inhumanly, they were tortured to death, and the dead bodies were sent back. I don't want to explain how the body, they were brutally killed. Then Indian Army came to know the magnitude of the Pakistan infiltrating force taken place inside the LOC. So on 9th May, Pakistan artillery observers, they directed fire onto our ammunition dump at Kargil, and it got destroyed. 15th of May, the Indian Army mobilized. And 26th May, the Indian Air Force, they carried out airstrikes on the infiltrating troops. Though the Prime Minister has given clear instruction that under no circumstances they will not cross LOC, and they obeyed. 27th May, Pakistan Stinger missile fired on, that is surface-to-air missile, onto MiG-27 piloted by Flight Lieutenant Nichiketa, and also a MiG-21 piloted by Squadron Leader Ajay Ahuja. It was told that MiG-27 had a engine failure. However, MiG-21, when it caught fire, Squadron Leader Ajay Ahuja, he bailed out, but his captors killed him, and his bullet-ridden body was sent back to India. On 28th May, again the Stinger missile, surface-to-air missile, they knocked out our Mi-17 helicopter, and the crews were killed. From 6 June to 4 July, there was a major offensive launched by Indian Army, and we started capturing and dislodging the Pakistanis from the nearby posts onwards and going towards the LOC. All the heights which I told you before were captured, and the main heights were the Tiger Hill, where the operation continued for 11 hours, and the Tololing Heights. 4th July is a very important day. That was the day, firstly, the world nations, they condemned the Pakistan's instigation of Indian Army by violating the LOC norms. And also, when the Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, he understood the success story of the Indian Army, Indian offensive, and also deplorable performance of the Pakistan, वो हमेशा की तरह भीख मांगने के लिए चले गया अमेरिका में. Bill Clinton was the president. He went and told, बचा लो हमें. The Bill Clinton in no uncertain terms told, firstly, that you are an aggressor and you got to withdraw from the LOC first. Then only we will be able to help you out. So he came under pressure, and he agreed to withdraw Pakistani forces, and he signed a treaty with the USA on 4th July. 4th July was an Independence Day, national day for the USA. After he came back, on 11th July, Nawaz Sharif ordered Pakistan forces to withdraw. And 14th July, our then Prime Minister A.B. Vajpayee declared Kargil conflict as a victory. But Pakistan has still occupied 3 posts, and they vacated, leaving 3 posts. Then our Chief of the Army Staff, he requested the Prime Minister that he be given time. He wanted to vacate the balance 3 posts also, and it was permitted upon. And taking another week's time, all the posts were dislodged, destroyed, and vacated. So on 26th July, our Prime Minister declared Kargil Vijay Divas. Now the world opinion. Like I said earlier, almost all the nations condemn and criticize Pakistan for its violation of the LOC. The G8 nations, the Cologne Summit, also condemned Pakistan and for supported India. Thereafter, the European Union also criticized Pakistan and supported India. China, a long time ally of Pakistan, also asked Pakistan to pull out forces from the occupied posts and after withdrawing, get into a bilateral discussion to solve the issues. The Asian Regional Forum also supported India. Now the Gallantry Awards. In the Kargil conflict, 4 Paramveer Chakra were the highest gallantry award. They are Grenadier Yoginder Yadav, Lieutenant Manoj Pandey, Captain Vikram Batra, and Rifleman Sanjay Kumar. In addition, 11 Mahavir Chakra were also awarded. When it comes to Pakistan, the highest award is known as Nishan-e-Haidar, that is like our Paramveer Chakra. 2 Nishan-e-Haidar were awarded, firstly to Captain Sher Khan of 27 Sindh Battalion, second Havildar Jalal Khan of Northern Light Infantry, both posthumous. In addition, Pakistan awarded 90 gallantry awards. Now coming to the casualty, we lost about 527 soldiers, including all, and 1,363 wounded. When it comes to Pakistan, there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of conflicting statements. As per Pakistan version, it is 453 killed. As per USA, it is 700. As per their Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, it is 4,000. As per India's record, it is 1,200. As per the Chief of the Army Staff, Parvez Musharraf, it is 357. Now, impact of the media. The mass media influenced the public opinion to a greater extent. The growth of electronic journalism gave a real-time coverage, and all the war stories, the war footage, they were real-time telecasted, and all Indians could observe, watch the offensive or the war going on in the rooms or the guest rooms or the drawing rooms. It was for the first time a live war was telecasted in South Asia. Like if you remember in 1991 April, Iraq occupied Kuwait, that is when the America got involved. That is operation is known as Desert Storm. During the Desert Storm operation, the CNN gave a real-time coverage. So this coverage during the Kargil was also like that only. It also kindled the patriotic feelings of the Indians and also acted as a force multiplier. So after the Kargil was over, a committee was set up to study about it's known as the review committee. And afterwards, the present day situation is firstly, the troops level in the Kargil sector has been tripled. Also, during winter we do not vacate the posts, and all the possible routes are plugged. Where inaccessible, they were mined. The infrastructure architecture has improved tremendously. The roads were well developed. The habitats very well developed. Coming to the intelligence system, we have the satellite imagery, we have drones, we have UAVs, that is unarmed vehicles. So there is a coordinated intelligence system available, and we will be able to make out any breach by Pakistanis real time. So I tried to cover the Kargil conflict. What is the historical background? What are the importance of, what are the advantages Pakistani would have accrued by occupying this? What were the aims of Kargil war, and how Pakistan has mobilized, how Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Indian Navy mobilized, and how the war progressed, and ultimately what is the result, what were the gallantry awards, what were the casualties, and what was the role of the media, and lastly, what are the developments or improvements that has taken after the Kargil. Thank you so much for listening to me. Jai Hind.